We're good. It's almost 9 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. I would ask everyone to turn off their cell phones so that we don't forget to do that. And we're going to open the meeting with a resolution to go into closed.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Leonard. Resolved that council resolve itself into committee of the whole closed session as authorized under section 239 of the Municipal Act to consider adoption of closed minutes of meeting held January 17th, 2024 and labor relations or employee negotiations as it relates to positions within QP 2290.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Carried. This meeting to order. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the First Peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. All of council is here, so we'll start with our first resolution.
Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Gowdy, resolved that council rise from the committee of the whole closed session that bylaw 2022-0026 be waived and that the clerk report.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Carried.
And the report of the committee of the whole is moved by Councillor Lichty, seconded by Councillor Greenwood Spears. Be it resolved that council approve the creation of one new project manager / senior planner position for the Planning and Economic Development Department.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Carried. There are no addendums. Is there any disclosure pecuniary interest in general nature thereof of any item on today's agenda by any member of council? Seeing none, we'll note that in the minutes. Adoption of the minutes.
Moved by Deputy Warden Vandewall, seconded by Councillor Fowler, resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held February 21, 2024 be adopted.
Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we are now at delegations and presentations. And our first presentation is by Jason Curvin, ACP Community Paramedicine and Education Coordinator, Frontenac Paramedics, on the Neighbors Saving Neighbors Volunteer Responder Program for cardiac arrest in Frontenac. Welcome, Jason. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you. So good morning, Council. So my name is Jason Curvin. I'm, as she said, I'm the Community Paramedicine and Education Coordinator at Frontenac Paramedics, and I have the pleasure of leading the operational side of the Neighbors Saving Neighbors volunteer pilot program, which utilizes screened, trained, and equipped community members to respond to cardiac arrest cases within Frontenac County. I work in concert with our research collaborators, Dr. Stephen Brooks and Vlad Latu from Queen's University. Today, almost exactly a year after we launched our NSN volunteer recruitment efforts, I wish to share with you some updates on the program. We currently have 86 active volunteer responders in all 4 townships across Frontenac County. Paramedics have carefully trained each of them in CPR and how to use an automated external defibrillator or AED. Active volunteers keep AEDs with them as they live, work, and play across Frontenac County. They are alerted to cardiac arrest via mobile app when within 10 kilometers of a reported cardiac arrest. If volunteers arrive at the scene before professional responders do, they can begin emergency treatment in the critical moments before professionals take over. Survivability for out-of-hospital cardiac arrest decreases by 10% every minute an AED is not applied. So even a few seconds can make a life-changing difference to a patient experiencing a cardiac arrest. Change the slide, if you would. NSN volunteers come from all walks of life. While some are off-duty healthcare providers, the majority are not. They are citizens who have stepped forward and contributed their time to help improve cardiac arrest survivability in their neighborhoods. We have received almost 350 NSN volunteer responder applications over the last year. Although not all applications are eligible for the program, we see very high interest in and support for the NSN program from Frontenac residents. Change slide. Additionally, other paramedic services in Eastern Ontario and across Canada have reached out or expressed interest in our NSN program. Lanark, Leeson, Grenville, Kawartha Lakes, and BC Emergency Health Services are each either considering or have begun work to implement their own NSN programs. Change slide. Dr. Brooks has described our NSN pilot in various writings and at numerous conferences throughout North America, and always highlights that this is a Frontenac County program administered by Frontenac paramedics in collaboration with Queen's University. We are fortunate to be part of this pioneering work in resuscitation science. It's one example of Frontenac paramedics working to improve survivability for our residents and leading positive change in our profession. And I want to thank you, counselors, for your support of this program so far. Our NSN pilot program is expected to continue data collection for Dr. Brooks' study until early 2025, when the research grant that made launching this program possible will expire. We hope you will consider the benefits the NSN program brings to Frontenac County and its residents as that day draws near. I would very much like to see our work continue. Change slide. In closing, NSN volunteers have responded to 19 alerts in all 4 townships since the program went live on September 1st last year. Of those 19, NSN volunteers arrived on scene before professional responders on 4 occasions and administered CPR and applied an AED in 2 cases. I'm very proud to report that on 1 occasion, a Neighbors Saving Neighbors volunteer played a key role in the survival of a Frontenac County resident by arriving on scene in just under 4 minutes, initiating CPR, applying his AED, and delivering emergency care for about 6 minutes before any professional responders arrived. That NSN volunteer is with us today, Mr. Mark Sherwin over here. Because of the NSN program, Mr. Sherwin was able to play a significant role in returning a Frontenac County resident to their family. And in my profession, there's no greater return on investment than that. Chief Chevalier will present Mr. Sherwin with a commendation in a few minutes. For now, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Terrific program. Ron?
So I see it started obviously in September the 1st of 2023. And does it run till September of 25 or it just runs to January?
March of 25.
March of
So
25.
18 months of data collection. Yeah.
And can you
Or
tell,
until the money runs out.
well, that's my next question. Can you tell me what the amount of the grant was so that if council wanted to look at it, what's the impact?
I'm not exactly sure what the full amount of the grant was, but we are sort of working to determine what the actual budgeting would be for the program moving forward. There's some things around, like, for example, the grant money had to purchase, all of these AEDs. We have almost 90 AEDs. Like, would the county have to purchase those, or are they just going to continue on? So that's sort of, when it comes to that sort of level of budgeting, that's sort of a senior leadership sort of issue that will be kind of discussed and brought to council at a later date.
Okay. Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Yes, thank you. I was there at the initiation of this at the Bader
Oh, yes.
opening. And that when Dr. Brooks, and I was under the full impression Dr. Brooks was the impetus in that and had started this project out of a personal life event that he was in part of. So with that, you applied for a grant after the fact to buy these AEDs, because he had indicated that he was doing fundraising at that point in time, and that for this project. And
yeah,
it's
so-
his project that's ongoing throughout North America.
Currently, yes. So all of the funding for the program is through his grant money that he's received. Yep. So all of the purchasing of all of those, I think we have 98 AEDs. That's all been done through that.
Right, so there's not that there's any money owing on any of these
No.
AEDs. We own them and they're good for
Well,
5 years or whatever.
We
on
don't
that
own
battery.
them. Queens owns them, or Steve, Dr. Brooks owns them.
Yeah, I know James Philpott was there
So
as well.
that's one of the things that has to be sort of figured out if, the county was to adopt the program as an ongoing program. What would we have to purchase those AEDs, or are they just sort of continuing on as sort of a legacy capital piece?
Yeah. And with that, the whole impetus of this project is for the non-professionals to have the AEDs, not neighbors, helping neighbors, not necessarily paramedics involved at that.
Yeah,
point.
I mean, it can be anybody volunteers. Like we do have some, nurses, we do have some, firefighters, we do have some physicians, right? But the point is that this is not part of the sort of, it's an addition to the existing response services system that we have in place, right? And because cardiac arrest is so time sensitive, it would be almost impossible, to have reliably that many, defibrillators within any, community. So
Absolutely in that. And
Okay.
you mentioned that there was 4 times that the neighbor helping neighbor was on scene first. Can you tell me which townships that was in?
yeah, so there was one of those, so 2 of those 4 were people in cardiac arrest. 2 of them were in South Frontenac, 1 was in Wolf Island, and 1 was in Central Frontenac, I believe.
Okay. Gail, are you doing a presentation? Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to present you with the Chief's Commendation, to thank you for your ongoing commitment and service to your community, and to congratulate you on having the first save in the Neighbors Saving Neighbors program.
Excellent. Okay, next we have Brady Straw and Kelly Andrews of the Ontario Onsite Wastewater Association will present to Frontenac County with its Corporate Innovator Award for the county's communal service project. And I believe they're with us on Zoom. Just have to bring you in. We're moving you over.
Okay.
Can you hear
everybody.
us? Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Good
Great.
morning.
Morning. Thanks for having us. Yeah, so my name's Brady Straw. I am the president of the Ontario Onsite Wastewater Association. And Kelly?
I'm Kelly Andrews. I'm the operations coordinator at the Ontario Onsite Wastewater Association.
So yeah, thanks for having us today. Just to give a bit of a background on who we are. So we're the Ontario Onsite Wastewater Association. So we're a provincial association dedicated to strengthening and reinforcing the benefits of on-site and decentralized wastewater treatment. Our members include government regulators, installers, engineers, manufacturers, maintenance providers, training partners. And we kind of achieve our goals through training courses, newsletters, guidance documents, an annual convention, networking, collaboration events, professional development program, and work with different provincial ministries, specifically the MECP and MMAH. Yeah, and we recently hosted our annual convention at the beginning of the month at Deerhurst Resort in Huntsville, and we awarded a Corporate Innovator Award to Frontenac County. So just a bit of a background on kind of what this award is and the criteria for it. So it's given to someone or corporation or individual who demonstrates exemplary innovation in advancement of on-site and decentralized wastewater treatment and management. They have advanced a product or service that adds value to decentralized wastewater management, and they have elevated innovative concepts and technologies, strengthening both the caliber of the industry and caliber of the association. And this award is not necessarily given out every year. It's only awarded when there is a worthy recipient. So why was Frontenac County given the award this year? Communal on-site wastewater treatment systems are not necessarily that well understood or accepted in Ontario. And there's often pushback from municipalities to move forward with those types of systems. Compared to many other jurisdictions in Canada and North America and around the world, where there are much more common type of installation and type of infrastructure management for our wastewater, compared to individual systems in a small municipal setting. There's better environmental protection, better public health, and compared to large big pipe type systems that you would see in a big city, they're less costly, easier to maintain than those types of systems, and have fewer sewer network, which is generally the most expensive part of any system. But the current methods in Ontario to move forward with communal systems are municipal responsibility agreements or financial assurance. And both of these are avenues that most municipalities are reluctant to enter into, and often municipal responsibility agreements can result in developers paying more than double the cost of what the system would cost. So the county knew this was a challenge, so they have been working for 7 years at least, I think, to develop a different model to be able to install and maintain and manage communal systems. So Joe Galvan was the driver behind it, and he understood that communal systems are necessary to kind of sustain and revitalize their existing small communities in Frontenac County. So they needed to develop a way to financially, administratively make it a reality to put them in, because the existing options out there just weren't going to work. So they overcame this by creating a municipal service corporation or a regional utility to support communal systems for the villages throughout the county. The advantages of these are, they limit political influence, they're business oriented, so they allow for profit, and there's a consistent approach to each of these systems that can be managed and maintained across the county. And with these systems, the fees that will be paid by the end user will be consistent with what you would expect for a typical municipal services. So it provides an affordable option to the residents, and is the best environmental option. But with this new municipal service corporation, Frontenac County has developed a way to be able to finance and administer these types of systems. So over the years, Joe and the county has been great in sharing the struggles and successes of their journey to get to the point where they were able to actually create the corporation late in 2023. And we continue to look forward to the implementation of these systems and their successes, and how they can be shared with other municipalities across the province. Throughout this whole journey, our association and our members have been working alongside Frontenac and alongside Joe, whether it's consulting firms specializing in on-site wastewater, helping to, develop that communal servicing model to technology providers and service companies, providing case studies and costs to show that the communal model is viable and sustainable. Our members generally promote sound practices and have been highly involved in updating provincial guidelines, such as the D5 series on water and wastewater, and on the provincial policy statement, highlighting that communal systems are a permanent and sustainable infrastructure, and that the provincial policy statement is really geared towards an ownership model, and it's not a technology model, and that these communal systems are a great solution moving forward. And the association decided to award the Corporate Innovation Award this year to Frontenac County for their innovative model that hopefully can be used in other jurisdictions to encourage more of these types of systems to help revitalize rural Ontario.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask Joe Gallivan to come up to the front because Brady and Kelly cannot present awards through Zoom, so I get the pleasure of doing that. So Joe, come on up. Back around here. If you come right around here, then we can still use the mic. Joe has been instrumental in putting Frontenac County on the map. He has attended conference after conference. He's spoken to so many people. He has spent hours and hours learning about systems and then trying to teach the council about systems and answering questions that this is all new to a lot of us. And we have come so far because of your leadership. You really have put Frontenac on the map, and this award is just a small piece of our thank you and the Ontario Wastewater Association's thank you for all the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All of us pulling together, Okay, so
It really has been a team approach, as Joe says, but if you'd like to say a few words. He is a man of few words.
Thank you to Brady and Kelly and UA for acknowledging the work that all of us Frontenac County have done. This to me is a true example of a project that if we all pull together across the region, we can make a difference for our citizens. And I want to thank the political leadership over the years to listen to me talk about this, as well as Mr. Pender, about the value of this for our future communities and for different forms of housing. It's a pleasure to represent the citizens of Frontenac, and but I do want to thank council for their ongoing support for this. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jason. Ron, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have just a comment for the two presenters. Well, I also want to have a comment for Joe. Joe also was forward thinking. We did a private lane study that wasn't done anywhere else either, and that helped us promote rural housing development on private lanes that the province also agreed to that time, where they were going to stop that. So that helped, I know, definitely helped South Frontenac. And so that was thinking outside the box. I know it's been 7 years, and I guess Fran and I are the only two that survived 7 years of Joe telling us about this project.
But we have learned a lot.
But my comment to the two presenters is we've been to Toronto, we've been everywhere promoting this communal system, and seeing your provincial organization, can you make the approval process more expedient? We've been 3 years working on a project right now for about an 80+ residents project in South Frontenac, and we're just getting to phase 3. So we would love it if there was a quicker process for an approved system. Just a comment.
I'm sure if you had some pull, Brady and Kelly, that you would be doing that last week.
For sure.
And again, thank you so much for this award for our very dedicated Joe Gallivan. Thank you.
Yep. Congratulations.
Well deserved. Congratulations.
All right, now we're moving on to health. From septic and water to health, eh? Dr. Peter Oglaza and Mr. Wes Garrett and Counselor Nathan Townen is here representing the Tri-Board Merger Committee. And they're going to give us an update on the progress to date of the Hastings Prince Edward Public Health, Leeds Grenville Lanark District Health, and KFL&A Public Health's possible amalgamation. Please come to the table. Just push the button on your right. Pull up some chairs. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Warden, and it's a pleasure for us to be here with Frontenac County Council. My name is Wes Garrett. I'm currently the chair of KFL&A Public Health, and I'd like to recognize Judy Greenwood Spears, who is representing Frontenac County on the Board of Health. And with me is Nathan Townen from Loyalist, a counselor from Loyalist Township, representing Lennox and Addington County. And of course, our medical officer of health, Peter Oglaza. It's first of all, I want to say I'm very proud to be part of KFL&A Public Health. It's a leader in the province as a public health unit based on the dedicated staff that we have, the innovative programs, the strong leadership, and the level of service that we provide to the community. And I need to recognize Frontenac County Council for their consistent support of KFL&A Public Health over all the years, and it's made a difference in our community. So thank you for that. Yes, we are here to give you an update on where things are in terms of the merger, and I must also say that we consulted with Kelly Pender on various aspects of the merger based on his experience and understanding of the process. So thank you, Kelly, for that. So now I'll turn it over to Dr. Oglaza.
Thank you very much. The goal for this presentation today is to provide you an overview where this discussion regarding voluntary mergers fit within the broader provincial strategy on strengthening public health. We'll be also providing an update of where we are in that discussion and exploration of the possibility of a merger between the three organizations and provide you an outline of the next steps. In August of 2023, the province of Ontario has released a document, a slide deck and a document that was outlining their vision, their strategy for strengthening public health. This strategy came in as a three-prong approach, of which the concept of voluntary mergers was one of the elements. Overall strategy was to optimize capacity, stability, and sustainability of public health. So this was all based on a number of reports released to date from the SARS crisis in early 2000s and then following the COVID-19. So voluntary mergers was one aspect of it. The second one was the review of Ontario Public Health Standards. Public Health Standards, Ontario Public Health Standards is the very broad document with a number of different sections that outlines the scope of work for local public health. And that review of these standards, the last time these standards were reviewed was in 2018. And the third one is to support local public health and support the delivery of local public health standard. The province will be conducting the review of the funding model to, again, ensure that stable environment for service delivery. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So the province has been trying to merge public health units for a number of years, probably all the way back to the year 2000. And the last one that was pre-pandemic, they wanted to go from 35 health units down to 10 health units, which would have put us part of Ottawa and the rest of Eastern Ontario. It was just a massive thing. And it was from the top down. This is what the government wanted. They were trying to cut, they were trying to save money, and they thought, okay, let's do this. But fortunately, there was an immediate pushback from municipal and public health advocates, namely AMO and Roma and Alpha, to say that's just not viable. It makes no sense whatsoever to think that there would be delivery of local public health services. So that the next step was that they said, well, let's make mergers voluntary and not imposed. So post-pandemic, there's better understanding by the province of public health's important role. And that's made a difference. Plus, the other little point I'll throw out there is that our former medical officer of health, Kieran Moore, is now the chief medical officer of Health Ontario. So he came right from the system to go to his positions. So it's great. So the provincial government is now offering incentives for public health units to merge on our own terms. And that's what we're talking about here today.
Slide. So in terms of what the government has set out as their goals from a policy standpoint, one is to increase capacity, critical mass of resources. This is kind of intuitive to us all coming out of the pandemic, things like emergency preparedness and response. Again, all of these goals presuppose that merged entities are stronger together. Improve stability over the long term. There are many challenges faced across the public health sector, such as staffing shortages, critical skills gaps. Again, the whole idea being that merged entities can share resources and assets in a spirit of collaboration rather than competition and duplication. Provide more equitable public health outcomes. Again, intuitive to our experience of the pandemic, which laid bare lots of the grave inequalities in our society and highlighted the socioeconomic determinants of health. The province is committed to addressing some of those. Obviously, in the context of the proposed merged entity here, there's also a geographical lens to that equity aspect, which is the rural and urban divide. Again, the province is well aware of those discrepancies and disproportions and hopes that these merged entities can address that and sort of stem the trend of ever increasing centralization of services in more populated centers. Maintain frontline services and jobs. And reinvest savings in the local public health unit. I've married those two up together because they're sort of really the key issues that understandably the public might have some healthy skepticism about. Typically, when everybody hears merger, they think cuts to services. The government has been unequivocally clear, particularly the minister herself, that this is not a cost-cutting exercise. And certainly the funding that the government has committed to this voluntary merger process would seem to put their money where their mouth is insofar as it's an unprecedented amount of funding. And so again, the government's been clear that services are to be maintained. And so any savings that are realized internally to the merger process through restructuring or other means can be reinvested in frontline services. The government will not recover those costs themselves.
Thank you. And if you look at the map, this is the three areas that we're looking to merge. And there's certainly a strong history of collaboration between the three of us. For example, folks who live in Charlotte Lake might go to Perth because it's closer in terms of getting services. And we've never looked at borders. Public health has never done that. We just provide services to the community because we're publicly funded. And it makes sense if you're on the east or west side of a jurisdiction that might be closer to go in that direction. And right now, in our public health units, we go north-south to provide services to the northern areas. There's a 401 corridor, but there's also a Highway 7 corridor, and it's probably going to be easier, and we should be able to provide better services by going east and west rather than north-south, and that's something that we'll be looking at in the process. We're very similar in terms of our culture and our approach to doing things, and what we've done is created a tri-board working group so that there are members from Hastings, Prince Edward, Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington, and Leeds and Grenville, Lanark District Health Unit. And Judy is representing Frontenac County on that merger committee. as well as Nathan. So that, and we've also engaged a consultant to make sure that all the steps that are necessary we will know of, so that what we have to do is present a business case to the province, and we want to make sure that everything necessary is included in there for this to be a successful merger.
So in terms of the tri-board committee that, Wes just spoke about, within our work, we've identified our own sort of guiding principles to help us go through this process. Some of those obviously marry up to the government's own goals. So sustainability is a core principle. The committee is very cognizant that the merged entity needs to be properly supported long into the future, and that the relevant funding and material supports need to be there. So rather than simply taking the approach of looking to the short term and treating this funding opportunity as a great cash flow opportunity, the committee is seeking to ensure that the ultimate ask that we take to the province in the business case that Wes just referred to, that ultimate ask reflects or is geared towards a secure future for the new entity. One that doesn't unfairly increase the overall burden on municipalities, which I'm sure we're all concerned about. The second is local. Again, coming back to an earlier point, addressing the differences between rural and urban communities. Inevitably, a geographical area as large as what is proposed will see a lot of shared challenges across the board, but also a lot of differentiated ones that are specific to local contexts. A people first approach dovetails, of course, with the government's own commitment to greater equity in the delivery and distribution of services. But it's a little broader than that. It's also dedicating strategic space to focus on strengthening partnerships and collaborations within our communities that are already positively affecting health outcomes for our citizens. So the new entity wants to embrace the best of what each health unit currently has to offer, in terms of good work being done. So a people-centered approach is equity-based, but it's not homogenous. It's not one size fits all. And the last principle, of course, is taking an evidence-based approach to our work. It's an obvious one, but it's one that's always worth restating. It speaks for itself because, of course, the effectiveness of the work that public health undertakes depends heavily on data-driven and well-researched answers. And of course, the merged reality hopes to increase and augment capacity for data collection and other evidence-based research tools that we will draw upon for our work. So all of these principles will be safeguarded by a fair and responsive governance structure, which maintains our essential representative links with our municipal partners.
Part of our work in exploration of the merger feasibility included looking at the funding for the new entity. Through that work, we've discovered that between the three organizations, there are different levels of municipal funding for local public health. That's mainly due to changes in population demographics, population growth dynamics, as well as some historical considerations. With a new merged entity, these levels will need to be harmonized over time. But the good news here is that the province, as part of the support for this voluntary merger process, they are recognizing that the cost associated with harmonizing of the municipal levies will need to be supported by the province, and they're eligible for that provincial funding supports for the merger over the next 2 years from the date of the legal merger. The levy structure will still need to be determined. That it will be ultimately the work of the new, larger merged Board of Health. With the new entity, there will be 14 obligated municipalities, so municipalities who are obligated to contribute to the public health budget. The new governance structure to ensure representation is still being finalized. Next one. I just also wanted to highlight some of the other unknowns in this process. As I mentioned earlier, the province has will be undertaking this year the review of Ontario Public Health Standards has a potential for changing the scope of our work. And there's also a known result outcome of the 2025 provincial review of the public health funding model, which may also impact how the levels of funding from the municipalities, how they are expected for the new entity. So there's two other significant elements that can impact the work that we do. Next slide.
So as you can imagine, the Tri-Board Committee has been working fairly feverishly to get this business case together as it's due to the province by April 2nd. The province will take some time to consider the business case and the various relevant approvals. So that'll take the course of the summer. It could happen earlier. There are indications that that might be the case, but either way, for now, in terms of planning purposes, we'll expect to hear back from the province by the end of the summer. And when we do, the implementation period will begin at that point. So it'll be sort of all hands on deck to reach January 1st of 2025, when the new merged entity will technically come into existence.
Okay, very good presentation. Deputy Mayor Vanderwall.
I guess I have a couple of questions. I don't see where a lot of the value of savings is yet. Do we still keep all of our regional offices? Like obviously Kingston, you would think is going to close, and then all of a sudden somebody else is going to run it from Brockville or whatever. So I don't know, are all the footprint that's there now staying? And I guess the part that I'm wondering is, do you have a stronger voice for rural at OHT, or will this strengthen our voice? Because the city, as we know from the rural area at the Ontario Health Team merger or whatever it was called, we didn't even have a voice. The city of Kingston had a couple of voices. They were willing to give it up. They didn't even want to listen to us. Some of those things. So by merging together, does this give the rural a stronger voice?
I'll start the answer with the operations and the focus on the rural service delivery. As a larger organization, we are merging with two others that have good experience in providing services to dispersed rural population. That's Hastings, Prince Edward. That's I'm familiar with the service delivery there, as well as Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. With the new merged entity, there's going to be increased focus on ensuring that the service is enhanced in those rural areas. That's what Garrett mentioned about the Highway 7 corridor. That's one of the plans for looking at service delivery, not just focusing on the southern parts and the urban areas. Part of the reason for us entertaining this merger is to make services better. So the enhanced focus on that service delivery in the rural area has already been noted by our senior leaders, senior staff, where we look at opportunities where we can draw from a larger pool of staff to continue with our presence in those rural communities. For example, right now, when we provide service in the Sharpwood Lake area, for example, this is drawing only from the staff from KFLA Public Health. In the future, we will have a larger pool. So instead of being once every so often in that rural community, we'll be able to send the outreach team and continue with the services on a more frequent basis as the need arises. So that's one of the opportunities. That doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't mean savings, because we still have to have that frontline staff delivering services. It's just that we are able to respond to the needs of the population along that northern Highway 7 corridor with more staffing to deliver. So I'll pause for now, and Nathan will mention about the OHT.
So in answer to the second question, yes, it is expected that the rural contingents will ultimately have a bigger say. The OHT issue has been in the background to some of the discussions the board has had about governance, the governance structure in the new board. I can't speak to the specifics of it because appropriately it has to go to the various boards first for ratification. But I can tell you that maintaining the links with our municipal partners and ensuring that rural representation is represented on the new merged entity has been a key part of the governance discussion. And then also within the larger provincial context, I mean, because of how big this merged board will be, we do absolutely expect that that for rural folks, we will be able to punch above our weight, certainly in comparison to where we stand now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bill?
Sure. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Two questions. One is this information or will the municipalities have a say in the ultimate design? So that's the first question. The second is to be a bit of a skeptic, just to be on above board with you. This could be viewed as just reshuffling resources. I'm concerned about frontline resources, the lack of doctors, nurse practitioners, you know, the whole list. So does this proposal at all address that shortfall?
I will attempt to provide an answer. The shortage of doctors is not something that we can do something about. But from the public health standard, currently there are 3 medical officers of health, one in each jurisdiction, and also we have an associate medical officer of health here in Kingston. To me, and in other discussions, we consider medical officers of health to be frontline staff. And we want to make sure that in this new entity that we can maintain that delivery of service regarding the MOHs, but that is yet to be determined. We do consider it important that public health is there for the community, and we know that there are many residents who do not have doctors, and public health in some cases is where they go for support and services, and so we do the best we can. But at this point in time, until the details are hashed out, that's about all that I can say in terms of answering. Nathan, sure.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
I was going to answer the first question. I mean, yes, technically, you know, this is information at this point. So all 3 of the boards that are proposing to merge are currently autonomous boards. And so what's being proposed is that the new merged entity will be an autonomous board too. So the way municipalities get their representation is obviously on the membership of the board. So ultimately the merger decision will be down to the individual boards of health. However, you know, we obviously want to maintain close links with our municipal partners throughout the process. So it's not just information for information's sake. We do obviously welcome feedback and that feedback going through the channels of representation on the current board. So it's not it's not platitudes. What we're doing, it's information that we expect to get feedback from, but ultimately, to answer your question, it will be a decision of the various boards as to whether they move forward.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, thank you very much for your presentation. You have a lot of work ahead of you. And please, we'll be asking for updates as you go along, and all the best in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have one more presentation, and that's by Zoom. Cindy Cassidy from the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance will address council as a result of the invitation we've offered to talk about EOTA and potential partnerships with EOTA. Cindy, welcome.
Thank you very much and good morning. And thank you again for having me. And my name is Cindy Cassidy, and I'm General Manager of Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance. And I'm here I'll bring up my presentation on the screen for everyone to view. And after the meeting, I will send it to the county to share.
Excellent.
So Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, your backyard just got bigger. I'm just trying. In 1996, area municipalities, user groups, business and tourism associations who had an interest in purchasing and developing lands for recreational trails on former abandoned rail corridors were brought together. We formed in September 1997 and incorporated as a not-for-profit charitable organization in 1999. Our board structure is 13 local municipalities that are appointed representatives. Our mandate is to develop, manage, maintain, and market a comprehensive network of year-round shared use trails for the health, economic, tourism, and job creation they bring. Now known as the best practice model in Ontario. Municipalities that are involved: Hastings, Northumberland, Lennox and Addington, City of Belleville and Quinte West, Tweed, Center Hastings, Hastings Highlands, Trent Hills, Bancroft, Marmarin Lake, Wollaston, Limerick, Sterling, Rawdon, Havelock, Highlands East, Greater Madawaska Valley, North and Central Frontenac. And we continue to grow with partnerships through Park to Park, Algonquin Park to the area of Perry Sound. We're working in partnership with them. We all sell the same pass. The trail system has been developed based on public consultation with different interest groups, clubs, businesses, and local government. Thus, it encourages cooperation at the local and regional level. We've implemented a user pay system based on four-season use and the maintenance required to support each use, and funding is obtained from municipal, provincial, and federal government programs to help support the plan. We also have established corporate sponsors, Bell Canada, Hydro, and Luma, which used to be Level 3 Communications. They all use these corridors too, so they contribute to the maintenance plan. And our economic impact study, Ontario Ministry of Tourism, the TREM model shows 25,000 annual trail visitors are spending $6 million and contributing $2 million back in taxes and creating just 70 jobs. Trails are one of the biggest opportunities in Hastings County, and EOTA has raised over $14 million since 2008 for our plan. We wanted to show you just the last 4-year trend in our permit sales, 343,000 in 2020, going up to 389 in 2021. 2022 was 438,000, and 2023 is showing 419,064. 2023, our true numbers won't be there until May, June, because again, businesses and others continue and clubs to send passes in, and they're dated for 2023. So our dollars will grow. And it is estimated that the maintenance cost for shared use trails is $863 per kilometer annually. Some of the shots before trail improvements, after, maintained again. In 2020, EOTA was successful in getting $3 million in partnership investment through the federal and provincial governments, infrastructure, ICIP, community culture and recreational stream, rehabilitation and renovation. The grant end date now is March 2028, so we still have 4 more years to go. The 550 kilometers of trail that is used for recreational trail, which serves as an alternative transportation to many recreational users, hiking, cycling, horseback riding, ATVing, snowmobiling, and creates links to 18 municipalities and 28 rural communities along this network. Use of the entire length of the trail will increase revenue for Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, as well as many surrounding communities, businesses, which can benefit from recreational trail traffic. In addition, 21 bridges will be rehabilitated to allow for safe public access for years. This will increase levels of service and promote the greater use. Tourism EOTA trails are a destination and attraction for Ontario and many municipalities, and bylaws are now in place to have road links to promote where to stay, eat, and play. Tourism continued. Your vacation is here. Travel to Eastern Ontario to enjoy our trails, stay overnight, the weekend, or better yet, plan your next vacation here. And you can create your own tours, walk, cycle, run, ride, stay, eat, and play adventures. We have a vibrant website, new map, Quinte Sportsman Show we attend, as well as the Toronto Snowmobile ATV Power Sports Show. And partnerships have fuel stations and other services within our area. And we have created packages that are on our have been created with accommodations in the area showcased on website. Packages include an overnight stay, trail pass, and sometimes an area restaurant. Government relations, EOTA continues to work with all levels of government and regularly updates ministers, MPs, MPPs, municipalities, and partners of why investment is necessary for a successful, sustainable trails and the benefits all that of it brings. And Recreation Trails Coalition Ontario, EOTA is part of Recreational Trails Coalition Ontario, RTCO, created a business plan and strategy for a one-pass solution. This plan was funded by the Government of Ontario through the Ministry of Tourism. And again, about 4 years ago, it was created. And Ontario's economic impacts from off-highway vehicle users, excluding snowmobiles, currently results in over 211 million in GDP, creates over 9,000 direct and indirect jobs, and contributes 27 million annually in tax revenue for provincial and federal governments, with the addition of the EOTA economic impact. Trails and the growth of the opportunity are important to Ontario. The plan can be viewed at dothetrail.com. I would encourage you to visit that website and check it out, and check out the different plans on that website. And our future plans are to keep the trail safe and user-friendly, build on trail tourism opportunities to increase economic benefits and job creation, to further market trail tourism packages through Destination Ontario website, ads, trade shows, to develop more packages with accommodations, to continue to create user-friendly maps for the area trails, and to continue to build partnerships, and to continue to work with federal, provincial, and municipal governments to assist with funds to achieve our goals. And if you require further information, please do not hesitate to contact myself, or also you can check before dothetrails.com. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Cindy. We'll see if there's any questions or comments from any of council. Okay, seeing none. Thank you we do have one, Fred Fowler, Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Cindy. Is the EOTA making any efforts to speak with the other organizations such as the Ontario Federation of ATV Clubs?
Yes, we are. After our last meeting, there was a motion passed for myself to set up a meeting to meet with them to see if we can, again, make any headway of coming together for a one-pass solution. On our website also, at the bottom of the page, there's a partnership proposal that was developed about 3-4 years ago, and it's a really good document. It was with a member organization of the OFATV and myself, and was vetted through the ATV Committee of Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, and EOTA board fully supported that partnership proposal, and there it sits. But again, it's there for information on our website on what we're trying to do, and the dollars and millions of dollars is at stake in investment. When we can come together, it's a better solution.
I assume this partnership with the county and the KMP Trail, it's to work together though. This isn't a leadership where they're going to take control of the trail. I know Richard's here, but I assume it's just to work together to have the one pass, connect all the system. Is that fairly correct? And obviously funding opportunities.
That's, yeah, I would say it's funding opportunities that we bring to the table if we can partner with the Frontenac County to help the KNP.
Okay, I was curious that, how many kilometers currently are actually Canada Trail compared to other
Trans-Canada Trail?
Yeah, the Canada Trail, and also where those kilometers may be intersecting and that with your group. And finally, does your group advocate for a speed limit?
You're speaking about the Trans-Canada Trail alone. We operate about 200 kilometers of our network as Trans-Canada Trail. And Trans-Canada Trail Foundation does invest in EOTA to help maintain and develop that trail. And we do have a whole signage program for speed limits as well as others. Again, we work closely with the Ontario Provincial Police through the Snowmobile ATV Vessel Enforcement Team, as well as local enforcement. They do have snowmobiles and they do have ATVs. And if we have problem areas, we just email them and they go out and patrol. In the communities, as you get closer to communities, normally the speed limit is 20 kilometers and outside is 50 kilometers.
Okay, and you said 200 kilometers is actually Trans-Canada Trail. And I asked, whereabouts is that?
So we operate it from Lindsay to Uxbridge, as well as from Hastings, the village of Hastings, through Campbellford, through to Sterling, up to Bonner-Law, and across through Tweed, Kelladar, Arden, and Sharbot Lake.
Okay, and you said 20 kilometers near urban areas and 50 kilometers in the country? Okay, thank you.
Yes, for
Okay.
speed limits.
All right. Thank you very much, Cindy. We've got quite the agenda left here today, but thank you and good information.
You're welcome.
Take care.
You too. Nice seeing everyone.
All right, move into the committee of whole.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the council adjourn and meet as committee of the whole with the deputy warden in the chair.
All those in favor? Carried.
Can I ask for a 5-minute break? Because I'm going to go there anyway.
We'll have a 5-minute break because you're not the only one that needs to go there.
Okay, we will call the meeting back to order. The first business of order is briefing by Mr. Kelly Pender.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. And today is our report for March the 20th, our third report of 2024. And I know there are a number of people that are heading to meetings shortly after this, and we've got a agenda behind us, so I'll be fairly quick. Next slide, please. A couple of different items on the agenda for the past few weeks, but largely centered around the Frontenac Municipal Service Corporation and the EOWC. And Frontenac County will be hosting the EOWC strategic planning sessions and business meeting Thursday and Friday in our new council chambers. And with all, knock on wood, as where our next council meeting will be, the technology is all being installed next week. And we appreciate the help and support of our IS team to pull that all together. Next slide, please. The Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, as I said, meeting Thursday and Friday, and a heavy agenda there. The Ontario Energy Board Act, and for any of the municipalities that have interest in changes to the Energy Board Act, essentially is going to give more powers to the province of Ontario to direct the Ontario Energy Board. So that will centralize power with the province of Ontario, and their aim is to reduce approval times and to put controls in place with respect to fees related to energy. So that will be a fairly dramatic change in how energy decisions are made in Ontario. And the Wardens Caucus at the last meeting discussed changes with respect to the provision of gas and the size of contracts. And we had a very lengthy discussion and presentation on that matter. Next slide, please. The Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario offering 2 streams of funding. And if your municipality is interested, the link is there. Next slide, please. Significant recruitment activity still continues, 84 postings as of March the 11th. Interviews ongoing throughout the organization. And we're still waiting on our mediated or arbitrated settlement with respect to QP 2290, which is our Fairmont workers and our administrative staff. And that took place, the hearing took place last November, and we're still waiting for the decision on that. We are finalizing and we reported on this at the last meeting, a decision with respect to our scheduling software, which will make it possible for staff to check their schedules, book time off remotely rather than having to come into the office, which is a significant benefit to paramedics and our long-term care workers. Next slide, please. The was a successful proposal to the Registered Nurses Association, RNAO, to become a best practice spotlight organization. And Susan reported on the application. We are successful. So that is good news, and congratulations to staff who put that together. Also successful in receiving a community grant program with regards to Tai Chi. I just have to look at my notes here, pardon me. We're still, the total numbers of engagement in February, about 37,000. February and November have traditionally returned the lowest traffic numbers. And we would note that we had an extra day in February, so, but still fewer than most. The top most visited project page on Engage Frontenac was the Geographic Information Systems GIS page, and that Kevin and Christy work on every single day. And the top most visited portion of our county website continues to be our careers and employment page, which we use all of our social media to drive people to that page. So it continues to be the highest one. I assume everybody is preparing for the solar eclipse on the 8th, and Kingston will be in the path of totality. And further north you go, you'll still be able to see it, but it won't be within the path of totality in the northern and central parts of Frontenac. But the city of Kingston is practically right on the path. We anticipate significant number of visitors to the area. Emergency Ontario has been very active in providing plenty of support to Jeanette as our CEMC, and she's been diligent in providing that to all of our frontline staff and managers about what's to be expected. We will obviously have concern with respect to any traffic issues, as we expect there will be a large number of people from outside the region visiting. And this is based upon experience from other areas that have been path of totality. Next slide, please.
Just comment, the city of Kingston said yesterday, 500,000, they think.
Yeah.
So if it's a cloudy day, that'll emit a lot of it.
Yes. I haven't looked that far ahead, but we've had discussions with MTO with regards to ferry operations for MTO ferries and for the County Howe Islander ferry. So we will be taking a very short break during the period of totality. We are responsible for the health and welfare of both the staff and of passengers, but we will coordinate messaging with MTO. And the shutdown will just be for that small period of the path of totality. So they will be docking whichever side they're on, depending on how that works. Planning services update, the RFP to hire a consulting team to work with the county and the townships with regard to the community planning permit system closed on March the 1st. And Joe and Sonia have been interviewing consultants, and we should be getting started on that as well. Delegated authority for undisputed consents. Again, both these projects will help speed up the process and make it easier on councils and your committees of adjustment, and obviously on applicants for things that are fairly straightforward. So all three townships that the department does planning for, North Central and Frontenac Islands, have passed bylaws, and South Frontenac has as well with their staff. So we're anxious to show the world that we're ready and open for reasonable development, and both those projects will help with that. So the planning applications are a little bit slower. That's typical of this time of year. January, February are usually the lowest periods. It's as the sun becomes warmer and the days become longer, the number of applications will pick up, but we anticipate a busy season ahead. And finally, the business trail signage program. Every spring, the county and the Cataraqui Conservation Authority coordinate on installation of business signs on the KMP and the Cataraqui Trail. And the goal is to add wayfinding signs to the trail, help trail users connect with local businesses and villages. And since the program was launched in 2022, we've had 22 businesses purchase signs as part of the program. If you know a business that you think can benefit from the trail, please encourage them to mail ecdev@frontennaccounty.ca, and Debbie and Richard will take care of that. Also pleased to welcome to the county Robin Quick, who will be our GIS specialist in serving Central and North Frontenac after Charlene Godfrey announced her resignation last year. Robin has both a bachelor and master's from Western University, and we're excited to work with her, and she's experiencing rural Frontenac at its finest, and we appreciate Robin's leadership, and she can be found at the Central Frontenac office or North Frontenac office, depending on the day of the week. And with that, if there are any questions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Pender on his presentation? I just had the one, the energy board. I don't know how much you've been involved with it. If the province is going to have more say or control or will they have a voice to say where energy generating or storage could go? Because Todd Smith, I think, was the minister that said he would absolutely never tell us that we had to take it.
Yeah, I read the briefing last week when we were putting this together. I mean, it doesn't explicitly say that, but it definitely gives more power to the province in the decision-making process. So if that comes from that, then maybe yes. But I know that this government has been particularly emphatic about local decision-making on energy projects. So that'll have to be balanced.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else then? Thank you, Mr. Pender. Then we will move to Committee of Management of Fairmount Home.
Moved by Councillor Gowdy and seconded by Councillor Lichty that Committee of the Whole Council adjourn and meet as Committee of Management of Fairmount Home with the Deputy Warden and the Chair.
All in favor? Carried.
And for Report 031, it's moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears and seconded by Warden Smith. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Fairmount Home Quality Improvement Plans report, and further that the Council of the County of Frontenac approve the QIP submission to Health Quality Ontario with the quality standard provided by HQO.
Any questions? Councillor Greenwood Spears.
I have a couple on that. When I was reading through, it mentioned that dementias, and there's a wide variety of them, are not considered a psychosis. And one of the emphasis is to not have anybody on antipsychotic medications without a diagnosis of psychosis. So with that, I wonder access to geriatrician or psychiatrist. And that, because usually a psychosis diagnosis is beyond the scope of a GP or a nurse practitioner, and what the game plan was for that. And one other query I had was when it talked about getting a bladder scanner. How many bladder scanners do we currently have? Is that the very first bladder scanner? I didn't think so. Okay, good.
Ms. Brandt?
No, that would be the second one. And just to refer to your first question, we do have access to a seniors mental health psychiatry team who would come in and do those diagnoses for us. They do.
So how many, because behaviors are often associated with other dementias and that, how many people do you currently have diagnosed as psychosis? It's just in a ballpark.
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess. I certainly could respond to that post-meeting if you'd like with that information. But I would find that I would suspect that it's significant, and it would involve like our nurse practitioners, our medical director, and then they would seek the evaluation, like you said, external.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Seeing none. All in favor of the report? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Leonard that the Committee of Management of Fairmount Home adjourn and revert back to Committee of the Whole Council.
All in favor? Carried. Recommended reports from the Chief Administrative Officer.
So for the report 029, it's moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Gowdy. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Emergency and Transportation Services 2023 Legislative Response Time Standard Performance Plan reporting to Ministry of Health for information, and further that the 2023 Response Time Standard Performance Plan outcomes for the County of Frontenac will be reported to the Director, Emergency Health Regulatory and Accountability Branch, Ministry of Health, as required by legislation.
Any questions? Councillor Greenwood Spears.
I was wondering if we could get a breakdown by township as to the hitting of the targets, because while it gives us a percentage of how many times it's hitting within the CTAS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that I'm curious as to whether, well, we know that Frontenac Islands that would never hit the response time, that given our isolation, that, but I'm also curious whether the other townships are hitting those response times for these two. Because while the significant population is in the Kingston and South Frontenac area, I think we should all have a good information on that.
Certainly, we can compile that information and get it back to you. It's not one of the requirements of reporting to the ministry, but we can get you that information and bring a report back.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, all in favor of receiving the report? Carried.
And for report 30, it's moved by Councillor Lichty, seconded by Councillor Greenwood Spears. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Corporate Services appointment of an area weed inspector for the County of Frontenac report for information, and further that the clerk be directed to bring forward a bylaw later in the meeting appointing Kelly J. Pender as area weed inspector for the County of Frontenac.
Any comments? Councillor Fowler?
I understand you're going to be leaving us. Would we have to go through this process to pick another one? If and when that happens?
I'll defer that to the clerk, and that, staff don't declare a conflict of interest, but I'll defer that to the clerk and the.
Or is this your new part-time job in retirement?
It may be, it's not high demand time, let's put that.
So it's a 3-month appointment at this point. Councillor Lichty.
Can we not set this up in the future as this being the weed inspector is the CAO, and the CAO can appoint someone from his or her staff to perform this particular duty? Then it wouldn't have to come back to council.
Sure. Well, we'll look for, never
Nope.
mind.
I'm getting the look here. So I don't know.
The answer is no.
Sorry, so under the act, we do have to appoint annually, and I do have to report that to the province.
Okay.
Councillor Greenwood Spears.
Okay, and the reason that our good CAO had been the weed inspector is given his background with landscape and professional training, and that was part of it. So I'm just wondering, I know that it can be challenging because it's a ad hoc type of approach, but we should probably be advertising in that, and we may end up with somebody in a shared municipality for this skill set and that, but I'm just wondering, when are you planning on starting the advertisement? Because I did read through in that it's a temporary for our former CAO and that, but there may be actually people from the agricultural community that are actually qualified for this as well and might be interested.
So through you, Deputy Warden Vanderwall, we have done that. We have reached out to the Frontenac Municipal Law Enforcement Agency. They do not have anybody trained to do this, but they are reaching out to their community of networks to see if there might be somebody interested. We had also reached out to the townships. As noted in the report, the majority of the other upper tier counties have a road system, and their public works department does this. They also have stringent weed control policies in place through their public works department. We do not have that public works department, which leaves us at a little bit of a disadvantage. So we did reach out to the townships, but at this point there was not an interest for them to take this on either. So we are just waiting to hear back from Frontenac Municipal Law Enforcement to see if they have somebody in their contacts that would be willing to do this. And the next step will be discussed at the staff level to see where we can take it.
Okay. If you did send out a pseudo advertisement or posting of any sort, I'd be happy to make sure it's circulated on Frontenac Islands, and we will be hosting the Canadian Championship of Plow Association and that, so we may run into a wide variety of people, even wider than what we have.
Okay, Warden Smith.
Just a question. Kelly, I believe you've been doing this for a number of years now. How many calls out have you had?
Last year we had 2. One resulted in an actual complaint, and I issued an order and then issued a compliance report. The other complaint was never resulted in a formal complaint. So I did a visual inspection, but there was never a formal complaint, so there wasn't follow-up. So it is complaint driven. The year before that, it depends on the year. But the year before that, there were maybe 3 inquiries. But lots of times, it's just a discussion and it's resolved largely between neighbors, if I may say that.
I will just say to that point, it's kind of like we have a livestock evaluator and you can't get one. Right? Because the demand isn't what it is. We've tried to do it with reaching out to other municipalities and you can't get anybody to say, well, I'm going to stay here to be the livestock evaluator because and so it's the same thing with the weed. The work is so small that it's hard to keep somebody, but we have a very capable person in place. All in favor? Carry.
So for report 033, it's moved by Warden Smith and seconded by Councillor Fowler. Whereas the Howe Island Ferry is operated by the County of Frontenac, and whereas all costs associated with the operation of the ferry are the responsibility of the vessel owner, the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, and the Township of Frontenac Islands, and whereas legal fees, with the sole exception of fees related to labor relations, are the sole responsibility of the township, and whereas the Township of Frontenac Islands has requested that the County of Frontenac consider amending boarding policies to remove all restrictions during peak commuter hours, thereby deleting the reference to a 3,000 kilogram weight limit in the following policies: Policy MS 12019, heavy truck restriction; Policy MS 17001, heavy truck restriction period agricultural related exemptions; and MS Policy 1218, weekend and holiday truck restrictions. And whereas it is important to take into account the opinion of residents regarding the change, as prior changes to boarding policies have been extremely contentious, now therefore be it resolved that the County of Frontenac requests that the Council of the Township of Frontenac Islands commence a minimum 30-day public consultation with Howe Island residents and businesses and report their findings to County Council. And further, that the Township of Frontenac Islands acknowledge that all costs related to requests, including staff time, will be the responsibility of the township. And further, that the Township of Frontenac Islands fully indemnify the county for any legal action that may result from this request. And further, that all questions, comments, and concerns received by county staff related to the request be directed to the township for their attention. And further, that this matter be deferred until such time as the township has reported on their public consultation and provided a motion acceptable to the county clerk with respect to related costs and indemnification.
Okay. With any questions or comments? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. First of all, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for a very thorough report. This is a complicated issue, and I think you've covered virtually all the aspects of it. I do want to, if I, with the permission of the Deputy Warden, I do want to add a little bit of background to the comment regarding the restriction of trailers on the small ferry or the township ferry, because as it reads, it appears it's based just on low water. I want to provide the council with some background. As you may or may not know, the township ferry was refurbished under rules by Transport Canada in 2019. The resulting modifications included increased safety equipment, more guarding, more railing, all of which narrowed down the vehicle boarding area. The issue that created was that we then had safety issues for ferry staff where they were being blocked by trailers, vehicles, whatever, and getting around and causing injuries and those kind of things. There was also an issue related to us by Transport Canada that with trailers on the ferry, the operator's ability to visual ability to see oncoming traffic was compromised or hampered. Those concerns were identified both verbally and then in 2021. The foreman of the ferry submitted a report to the Public Works Manager. We can't find any record of any action being taken. In 2023, when we had this period of low water, the new Public Works Manager brought the issue to council, and that resulted in a fairly extensive discussion and research into what else was going on. That's when these other issues came forward in terms of safety issues. It wasn't just low water, concerns by Transport Canada, and quite frankly, identified issues where ferry staff were being harassed essentially in terms of determining what trailer could come on, which couldn't, which were too wide, which are too narrow. And the conclusion, given that it was such a complex issue, was just not to allow trailers of any kind on the township ferry. That was further supported, substantiated by residents of Leeds Grenville who live on the spit of land that goes up to on the mainland that goes up to the ferry, where trailers will come down, they get blocked, there's no parking down there. And you have some instances where large tractor trailers would come down and there's no area to turn around. So subsequently they have to back all the way up. So it's a concern for many reasons. And our conclusion was the best solution was to just remove any ambiguity and remove trailers from the small ferry altogether. And that's essentially what prompted the issue we're now looking at, which is moving trailers now to the county ferry. So that's some background in terms of how we got here. I am not in favor of the motion. I think first and foremost is important for people to understand the existing procedures been in place for 20 years and does not recognize current realities. New vehicles, trucks, and passenger vehicles are becoming heavier, especially with the introduction of electric vehicles, with many now exceeding the 3,000 kilogram limit. As the procedure states, the intent is to allow commuters unrestricted access to during peak times. Commuters should read as people going to work or driving to appointments. There are tradespeople on the island who are required to take a trailer to the job sites or place of business. And this is not every day, but on some occasion during the course of a month or a week. And essentially this discriminates against them as they also need to get to work. When this procedure was implemented, the ferry had 3 lanes and a larger trailer would take up more than 1 spot. With a restriction placed on the ferry by Transport Canada, the ferry is now 2 lanes, and as a result, the trailer only takes up 1 spot. And almost without exception, the owners of these trailers have purchased trailer permits. So they're paying a fee to get on the ferry, and they're being, in some cases, restricted during those times. With the procedure talks, while the procedure talks about restricting large vehicles, it does not mention trailers specifically. As a result, ferry operators have chosen, I'm not sure if by direction or on their own, to simply impose a no trailers position, rather than trying to determine whether the weight of the truck and the trailer exceeded 3,000 kilograms. So to make it, I guess, as manageable as possible, it's interpreted as strictly a no trailer position during those 2 peak times. We also know that loading times can be delayed as operators control traffic and direct other vehicles around the non-compliant vehicles. Emergency vehicles, school buses, agricultural vehicles, and equipment are exempt, meaning that the tradespeople who live on the island with the trailer are the only residents that are really affected by this. The island has experienced a reduction in delivery service as well, as many of these businesses, or many businesses, refuse to wait in long lines and get off the island. So we've lost service from UPS. I think probably Canada Post is probably the only regular delivery of packages now to the island. Otherwise, you have to go into town, most times into Kingston to get deliveries. So in summary, if I can, it's our belief that a simple first in line, first on approach is fair for all, eliminates the need for ferry operators to make decisions, and in all likelihood will make loading less complicated and in fact probably more efficient. If this motion is passed, it will result in months of delays and create more situations where ferry operators will be placed in difficult situations, determining who can and who cannot load during these peak times. I've done a little bit of Google searching, and more vehicles becoming more heavy. The vehicle right now that's becoming somewhat popular is the Ford 150 Lightning, which on its base weight approaches the 3,000 kilograms or 3,500 pounds. Put any load on it at all and it's going to be over. We have people coming and going from the island who now have larger pickup trucks, the 2,500s to 3,500s, diesels, duals. Those vehicles all exceed the weight limit. So we're in a situation now where, in my belief, the whole basis, the situation that created this original procedure is outdated. And I think we need to just recognize the realities of today's business and just eliminate it altogether.
Okay, is that it?
I guess what I also say is our request is therefore to have this motion defeated, and staff be instructed to implement the request by the township to implement that request within 10 days.
So first off, we would have to deal with it. Well, you're wanting to serve an amendment to it, right? Or just defeat the motion and then you will bring back a request for the change.
I would look to the
Right.
clerk for direction on that.
If this motion is defeated, then you can bring back about the request. If it's not defeated, then obviously this has to go forward.
Yes,
Is that correct, madam?
That's correct. So if you wanted, so if this motion does pass, you are able to make an amendment to this actual motion, just in case if it is passed, it might capture something that you want to see. So you can make an amendment to this motion, but if it's not defeated, then you would not be able to make an additional amendment. That would not be germane to the motion that was just passed.
Okay, so through Deputy Warden, so for clarification, if this motion is defeated, we would expect, I guess, that the procedures in place now would now be removed as per the request from the township.
Well, sorry. The motion is to defer till you do all the legwork. So if this motion carries to defer, then the ball is in your court. But if you want to try to put that amendment in there, I'm not sure that you could put the two together when the one is pretty specifically clear in the middle of this deferral. Jerry asked first, so I would have to go to him, friend. Councillor Lichty?
So I looked at this and I don't think the public consultation should be required. You have a duly elected council. In Frontenac Islands, they're supposed to know their own business. However, we've been burned in the past. So I would suggest that as the council responsible for their own operation on the island, we take out the required public consultation, but at the same time, because they are responsible, they have to accept the consequences. And that means if we run into trouble as a county, we want to bill them for our time. So I'd like to see this particular motion changed with it to the extent that the public consultation section is deleted.
Deputy Mayor Smith?
I was at this table when we tried to make changes before, when there were lawyers, when there were all kinds of lawsuits, there was all kinds of money spent defending all kinds of things. If you don't have a consultation, then I think you're going to run into big problems, whether it's you that's running into it. We will all get sued, I'm sure, trying to make any of these changes. So if past history is any indication of what the future will be, I think you need to take some time with this, really open it up, have people let you know what they think, because it's an island with many diverse people that will have many different opinions. And I think unless you do that, you're going to be setting yourself up for trouble down the road. And I would support this motion.
Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Thank you. I have 4 ferries that serves islands, and that one tied up, we won't count. But of the ferries that are both run by MTO as well as 2 that are run by our township, and that it is on a first come, first serve, unless there's a priority boarding. But we've certainly never penalized a size of the vehicle. And that's, so for example, on the Kingston dock, there are lanes for large trucks and trucks with trailers to line up. That said, they are not given a priority onto the boat before anybody else, nor are they held back. It is done by who comes first serve. And it is a road is a road is a road. So the MTO looks after that one, and certainly at the Simcoe Island Ferry and at our Foot Ferry. And that when you get down to the lineup, you're in the lineup, whether you're on the mainland side or the island side. And that if you're a healthcare worker or high priority agriculture with livestock or perishable crops, something like that, you get a priority. Ambulance gets a priority. Coroners will get a priority. That said, the request came from the Township Council and it was passed by council, and that to remove the only ferry that has an impediment for people that line up in due course. And there is no additional space for trucks to line up separate and apart, so it's crystal clear who came first and who didn't. So it would be my hope that this would be defeated as well. As for the legal costs, that's already historic, that legal costs related to the ferry are covered by us. But picking up staff costs, that's already part of this county expense. So that's not something that we would entertain as an additional piece. We already have the agreement that we look after our 20% and we look after our legal. That's it. Don't penalize us anymore.
Other comments? Councillor Leonard?
Is there a reason why you don't want to go back to the public for consultation, or is this already may have been done?
Councillor Saunders?
Thank you, Deputy Warden. This discussion started back in December. So this is not a one-time thing. So we've been discussing this for approaching 4 months now, prior to going to council. My fundamental issue with going to consultation is if it becomes some kind of a vote or a poll or whatever, the number of people who need to take their trailer to work in the morning would be grossly outnumbered by the folks who are going to a doctor's appointment or going to work or going to golf. So I don't think it's in fairness to those folks who, again, in the intent of the policy to get to work, I think if we did some kind of vote, that'd be outweighed, which I, on principle, don't think is fair. If I could also, Deputy Warden, in response to the warden's comments, I guess it's a matter of principle. I know there's been some history and there's always the potential. We all know that anybody can sue anybody for anything. But I think if we take positions that we don't want to defend some on the risk that there may be a legal issue, and in my uneducated opinion, I think this would be a frivolous lawsuit. It doesn't matter, it would still be a lawsuit. I don't want to see council make decisions based on the perception there may be a lawsuit. If we have some legal advice that says, yes, you're setting yourself up, like we have done with planning or other, that would be a different manner. But to speculate on a lawsuit, I don't think is reason for council to not pass. I'm trying to not use double negatives, not pass the motion.
Hey, I guess I'm going to have a couple of comments on it then. These restrictions came in by request from the island. Some of these restrictions specifically came in from people that lived on that island. That's why it was relooked at. That's why they found the language surrounding agricultural priority and all of the things that were put in place at the time from the two people who are still here that remember this. That's why there was lawsuits. That's why they were challenged. That's why all of these things happened. But the request came from island residents. So I think at this point, what do you want us to do if we say, okay, well, we're going to take it out? Are we saying we were wrong and open that door? I can't take that risk. And you can say, well, a threat from a lawsuit shouldn't change anybody. We were at council last night and somebody can always says, well, if you approve this, I'm going to LPAT, I'm getting a lawyer, I'm going to do this. Well, that can't change your mind on what the decision should be because that's not reality. Everybody can make a threat, whether it amounts to nothing or not. So sitting through this, I think that the direction is very clear. And whether it's deferred a month or two to get that decision, that's no different than a planning process where you turn something down or a report has to come back. It's going to take a month. It's going to take whatever it takes. But I think this needs to be supported the way it is because then it's your responsibility to bring back the information, not this council. And this council acted before by request from the island. So that's just my 2 cents on it. I don't know. Do you have something to add, Jeanette, or no?
Excuse me, it's certainly not something to add in that respect, but in terms of the island councillors wanting this defeated and obviously seeing these restrictions removed, would require an amendment to the motion. So what you could do is you could propose an amendment to remove the first and last resolve clause, which is that you require the consultation and that it be deferred. You could move an amendment to remove those clauses and add an additional clause, first clause that says that the request be approved. And then I'm not sure what the rest of council would want to see in terms of the other three clauses, which really are related to costs in terms of any legal action that could be brought forth from this, any questions regarding why this has been done, whether it should be referred to the township as opposed to the county. So if you want to see it defeated, that would be my recommendation, is that you remove the first and last resolve clause, move an amendment to remove the first and last resolve clause and add an additional clause that the request by the township be approved, because just defeating this motion does not approve the township request. It just simply takes this right off the table.
Well, it's not defeating the motion, it's deferring, whether it's supported of deferral. And secondly, I don't think you should mix the two of them together, because the one is a very specific request, which I think needs to be a motion on its own then. If this motion is supported, I mean, you can make an amendment if you want, but if you're putting something in there that you want that load restriction taken out in a motion that says we're going to defer, I think you're putting something very critical that you're asking for in a motion that would either be just deferred or defeated. So I think that should be, in my opinion, should be a separate motion if that's what the request is trying to be. And I'll leave it at that, but it's up to you. I just think that mixing those two critical pieces together is not fair to the motion. I think if you want to defer the motion, and then if you want to bring back to say, I would like to serve notice of motion to have that load restriction removed, that's totally different than the two things that are together. I think one of them in there is totally different from taking over control of the ferry, public consultation, giving the county amendment, indemnity. All of those things is totally different than saying, I want the load restriction off. So that I don't like the two of them together. I think one should be definitely on its own. So if we vote on the motion the way it is, and it is supported to be deferred, I think then you could bring back serve notice of motion to have that specific thing dealt with. That's just my opinion. Or if we defeat it, then I don't know what happens. Then you're back to square one anyway. Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. If we go back to consultation, this, I'm just trying to play this out in terms of the schedule. So it's deferred today. We do a 30-day review consultation that comes back to council, our council. Then there's a discussion about what the results mean. Then there's a period of time where the report's required. Then it has to come back here for a notice of motion, which is another month delay. So since we've already been, as a township council, already been looking at this for upwards of 4 to 5 months, we're going to extend this whole process by another 4 or 5 months.
Well, just to comment on that, if you want to do your public consultation, whether the island wants to take the operation over, that's totally different than that one specific line in there. The line in there of serving notice of motion would be that this council would vote on whether they want to remove the weight restriction, and that can happen within a month. The rest of it is still up to you. Whether you want to have the public consultation, the 30 days, you can give everybody a say whether they want your council to be in control of the ferry or not. And that has no bearing on whether you want this one piece of the motion to pass. That's my opinion. Yes, Bill, or whatever. Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with the ferries and the service and everything like this. This is all new to me. And I would like to have a little more time to look at it and maybe get more information. As far as the weight restriction, I can understand your argument there. If it becomes a motion on its own, I would support removing that. But I'd like to have a little more time to absorb what's going on. And I do understand time is a problem. But for me to make a decision on this that I'm comfortable with, I would rather see it deferred.
The other part is you could add a consultation to 15 days and it would be back on April's agenda. Deputy, or no, Warden Smith.
Whatever my name is. Have you had any feedback from people on the island that don't want to have this changed?
Through Deputy Warden, yes, we've had informal conversations with numerous people, and it's right, it's fair. They've got to get to work. One of the, maybe I understated this, but one of the changes that's had a big impact on this is the move from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. Because larger trailers, just not that long, but wider trailers would always take up more than one space. Now it's very straightforward. They just drive on, there's no restrictions. So that's one of the aspects or the situation that's changed. And if I could respond to the Deputy Warden, this initial request was put in place 20 years ago. Right now, there's been some modifications. No, sorry, the procedure was put in place 20 years ago. There's been some modifications in response to legal actions, which, if I remember right, were defeated anyway. So it just does not represent the situation we have with that ferry in today's terms.
And on that note, though, if you change the consultation time and if you have that, you could have it back on the agenda. That's a month. Anybody else in the planning world gets something done in a month, they would be thrilled. Councillor Greenwood Spears.
So it sounds to me that the most straightforward way would be the defeat of this particular motion and given a notice of motion later on in this meeting from us that we'd like to have the restrictions removed at the next meeting. So that will be done. Because it's already been the decision of Frontenac Islands Council that that's what the request made. And it just did not come forward as a motion because we didn't have enough time to give a notice of motion until this period of time.
Wouldn't be to defeat this motion.
yes,
It would be to support this motion to defer.
No, it would be to defeat this motion, just start it clean with a notice of motion that we want to have and that would give enough time for the rest of the councillors to become familiar with it.
So that means then no public consultation, no indemnity to the county, and you still want to leave us on the hook down the road for your actions, let's say. That's all I'm saying.
I believe Councillor Saunders identified extensive consultation on Howe Island with numerous residents.
That's a lot different than a public consultation, ma'am, if you're not arguing with it. But if you have a public consultation, everybody who has an interest then is not just going to say to Bill, I don't like it. You're actually going to have everybody's opinion who should be affected. I don't want to argue back and forth. I think we should vote on the deferral or not. And if it's deferred, the ball is in your court. You can serve notice of motion if you want about bringing back the part about the weight restriction. I don't have a problem with that. That's totally up to you. Or you can do a 15-day consultation. If you want to meet these conditions, it'll be on April's agenda. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Deputy Warden, for your patience. Through you to the clerk. So to Councillor Greenwood Spears' point, can we make notice of motion today? I thought we had to give.
You can make the notice of motion today. It can't be voted on today.
No, but
So in terms of having motions put onto the agenda, you can provide a notice of motion today or even any time between today and before the next council agenda goes out. You can provide to me that you want to bring forward a notice of motion and it automatically goes on the agenda. The only time it becomes a giving notice of motion is when the agenda has actually been published. Because our procedural bylaw states that once the agenda is published, anything that comes additionally is an addendum that hasn't been given public notice. So you can give me a notice of motion anytime between today and before the next agenda goes out for April, and it will be on the April council agenda.
thank you for that clarification. Could I go back to, again, through you, Deputy Warden, to the clerk? You identified a friendly amendment that would address the issue of not deferring this, removing some of the clauses, and then directing staff to remove the restriction. If I remember, you offered some advice on a friendly motion?
I did offer some advice, but I would have to say at this point in time, I would probably agree with Clerk Vandewall. Who maybe gave a little bit better advice. It really is cleaner if you deal with this one as it is and go with a notice of motion.
Because if you mix the two together and anybody who has had a bit of a history with it would have to vote against it. We would have no choice. So if you're trying to mix the one with the other to get it passed, it would be way cleaner to say, I'm bringing back the portion that we need to be dealt with.
Yeah, just summarize.
Sure.
So if I could just summarize, there's a motion on the floor that needs to be dealt with. That motion can be amended. And it, for example, could be amended to reduce the 30-day consultation period to 15 days, which would have this motion back on the floor at our April council meeting. It could be defeated, in which case you could propose a notice of motion, which would get it back on the table for April. So either way, we are back at April. If the motion passes as it is, then it would likely be May before it gets back on the table. But nothing is going to happen before the April meeting, but you could accept the motion. We could approve the motion with an amendment to from 30 days to 20 days or 30 days to 15 days. Your council can deal with the public consultation and it would be back on the table in April. That is the earliest at this point that could happen under any of those scenarios.
And if I might add, then you might have the information that this council is more comfortable with. Because right now we're just, no disrespect, but it's just hearsay.
I hear well.
From certain individuals, I'm sure. Absolutely. Well, one way or another, yeah, I guess I'll give you 1 second to collect your thought if you want, but we're going to have to vote on this. Councillor Lichty.
So just to make sure I'm not confused with all this motions, addendums and so on. This particular motion as presented essentially says this particular item or resolution will be deferred until the township has reported on a public consultation. We're recommending 30 days minimum. And then providing conditions acceptable to the county with regard to related costs, legal costs, staff time, etc. I'm okay with that.
So the only thing that for Bill and Councillor Saunders is if you wanted to amend it to 15 days or something to that effect, 30 days would not get you on April. If you want to shorten that time period up, what you think is reasonable to give obviously residents an opportunity to have their say, then it could be back at April.
Then I would propose a friendly amendment to modify the motion to limit the 30-day consultation to 15 days.
The motion would be to amend the motion on the floor, deleting 30 days public consultation and replacing that with 15 days public consultation. Then we would vote on the amendment and then we would vote on the motion as amended.
We don't have friendly amendments.
No,
We
you
have
would
formal ones.
No, you're asking to amend it to the 15 days, change that from 30. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Gowdy. So we will vote on the amendment and then we will vote on the original. Pardon? Sure, you can if you want, if you haven't had enough to say about it yet. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. Councillor Lichty.
I have a question about the 15 days. How are you going to do it? I don't think it's practical. You got so many people on the island, you have to do X, Y, and Z. You have to notify them, you have to collect all their thoughts and so on. You need some kind of process. I thought 30 days was the minimum realistically, if you're going to do a consultation at all. So I just think 15 days is just giving it lip service and it isn't going to give you what you truly want. That's just my opinion.
Any other comments? Councillor Greenwood Spears.
I'm curious if any of the other township mayors and representatives would ever be questioned as hard on a request made from a township council to this county, in that there has been extensive discussion. There's been opportunity for the residents as well. And the request was made forthwith and straightforward, in that what's built into this proposed motion includes almost renegotiation of all costs, including staff time, when we already have an agreement in place that for legal costs, that's it. But you don't get to redo that aspect, in my view, in that in one fell swoop of a motion. Also, the appearance of micromanagement or doubt that there has been due process on Howe Island is not well appreciated. That's my comment.
I'm not sure what you're trying to imply. I sit on this council for Frontenac County. If you're part of that, great. If you don't want to be part of that, or you don't want to play along, that's fine too. But I am not going to put this county seat in jeopardy of a legal action that was put in place before. And maybe you think that's frivolous. I don't. And so I'm not voting that way to support that. Councillor, Deputy Warden Smith, jeepers.
You had to have been here to see the anger, to see the people sitting in front of the council telling us that the legal action was going to really hurt us, and the amount of staff time it took to prepare for those legal actions was horrendous. And it went on and on and on. So this is why we are looking at this, in that we lived a very bad situation because of ferries. So we're only trying to protect the rest of Frontenac County by saying, if you want to make these decisions, we'll operate the ferry however you want it operated, but you deal with the legal liability when you get sued, and you make sure that we're identified, that we don't have to spend all of that time again and deal with going to lawyers and court and all of those things that happened in the past. So there is a reason that we're taking this precaution, and it's called history.
So Councillor Saunders, are you, oh, sorry, Councillor Gowdy.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Just to comment back to Councillor Litke, in this day and age, I think that 15 days is reasonable. It's an island. You have social media, you have Survey Monkey, you can notify everybody as they get on and off the ferry, and to compile that data back in 30 days, like having a 15-day turnaround and have it back on our agenda in April, I think is quite fair.
Okay, so we will vote on the friendly amendment of 15 days. All those in favor of the 15 days? Opposed? So that has carried. And then on the original motion, that it's deferred until such a time that they report back from their consultation and that. So this is voting yes to defer. All those in favor of deferral? Opposed? It's carried.
Sorry, Deputy Warden, if I could just do a follow-up with the clerk. So it was mentioned that we can do a notice of motion. So at what point in the agenda would we do that?
That would be under giving notices of motion, which is.
Thank you.
So if there is a notice of motion given, this motion is on the floor, would need to be revisited in order to have a motion that is contrary to this one. So you couldn't, for example, propose a notice of motion to lift the restrictions without a 2/3 majority to rescind this motion, reconsider this motion, then rescind it, and then put a contrary motion on the floor. That's why I said the quickest way to do this is the 15-day consultation period, or defeat the motion and propose a notice of motion for April. So there can't be two motions contrary when one is in effect. That makes sense, Madam Clerk?
It does, unless it depends on how your motion is worded. So your motion could be pending the outcome of the consultation. But again, as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't need to be done today. That can be done anytime between now and when the April agenda goes out, which would be April the 12th. So you have between now and April the 12th to come up with that motion. But again, it could be the way it's worded. If it's today, it would have to say pending the outcome of.
And I think just as a word of advice for what it's worth, it's free advice, right? So it's not worth much. I wouldn't serve the notice of motion today. I would take the time to actually think of what you want that motion to say. And if it is pending on the outcome of your consultation, you would have ownership of the ferry anyway. Yes, the pending this consultation, which is saying they will indemnify the county, they want to have the responsibility, they want to do that. If that motion comes back to April, they already have control over what happens, not up. Then that's their decision. So you could make that, if you want to think about the motion, you could say, pending on the outcome of the consultation, then that motion would go on after whatever that consultation was. Is that fair enough? That's just what I'm thinking, but I wouldn't make it today. And but that's up to you. You have lots of opportunity to think about what that motion should say. Agreeing with Spears.
Just to clarify your wording and that.
Don't clarify my word.
Well, I need a clarification that because you are implying that the township takes over ownership and control of the county ferry, which is not the case. The county retains the control. The request from the township council was to have the policy made basically the same as what is on the other 3 ferries right now. First come, first serve, with the exception of priority boarding. It's that straightforward.
I'm not reading that here, but that's okay.
We
won't
didn't
argue.
write that motion, that's why.
We won't argue. So it's up to you. You can do whatever you want, but you have lots of time to make that thought of that motion. Where are we? Did we, information reports? No?
Yes.
Yep, information reports from the Chief Administrative Officer, council remuneration. Anybody have any questions? Okay, you don't have a motion to accept that or anything? No. Report from advisory committees of county council, none. Return to council.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that council revert from committee of the whole council to council.
All in favor? Carried.
If you want to just stay there, I'll ask the questions. Is there any notice of motions to be given?
Sorry, through you, Warden Smith, we still have to adopt the report of the committee of the whole.
Oh, sorry. We'll do that first.
Moved by Councillor Gowdy, seconded by Councillor Lichty, that the report of the committee of the whole council be adopted and that the necessary actions or bylaws be enacted.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Now we've got motions or notice of motions to be given.
It's up to you, Bill. I don't care.
Okay. I was just going to add that, Bill, you can also work with Jeanette to help wordsmith whatever it is you want. Jeanette, is that fair?
Yep, we're here anytime you need our help.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that's actually what the motion says, is that wording satisfactory to the clerk. So this,
Okay.
that motion defers consideration until the township passes a motion, and we'll provide that as a notice of motion to the clerk.
Okay, good. Now I have a note that says I need to step down from the chair
Yeah.
because I've moved a motion for the one pass system. Who takes over? Because Ron seconded it.
So the deputy warden may take over. The seconder of a motion is able to be in the chair.
See,
It's
she
not
knows
me
all
for
these
the
rules.
motion.
All right. So Ron, back to you.
Okay. Motion of support for one pass for motorized summer use of trail.
So through you, Deputy Warden Vandewall, I'll just skip through all of those whereas clauses and just
Thank you.
do the resolve. Therefore, be it resolved that the Frontenac County formally requests the province of Ontario to take leadership in developing a cohesive province-wide system of permits and/or passes for summer motorized trail use, ensuring a unified approach that supports all forms of motorized recreational activities, enhances tourism, and promotes economic development through our trail networks. And further, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the relevant provincial authorities, including the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport, and local and regional trail management organizations to encourage the establishment of a unified trail pass system that addresses the current challenges and leverages the potential of our trails for the benefit of all stakeholders.
Comments? Councillor Fowler?
Yes, this has been an ongoing wish of the EOTA and also the Ontario Federation of ATVs to have a one pass system. And I think it's better that the province, being the upper tier or the upper management in this area, be the ones to assist all of us to get the one pass system in.
Councillor Greenwood Spears?
I'm just wondering which specific areas of the Kick and Push Trail are we talking about for this one pass? So all of it, including the section that currently doesn't allow for ATVs and motorized vehicles during the summer months?
We don't have any of those.
The section south of Verona to the city
So-
of Kingston boundary is without ATVs, so it wouldn't apply to that unless council changed the policy.
But from
which we just
Verona
dealt.
to the north end and east-west is all
So,
motorized.
so I think that needs to be specified because in here it just talks about the KMP railway and it doesn't specifically limit it to where the current motorized vehicles are allowed.
No. Oh, I thought Jeanette was going to give a professional opinion, but go ahead.
Jeanette, you're more than welcome. I'm reading the clause about the KMP, but we're not talking about the entire province. Like one pass for the entire province, you can go anywhere.
Which is what snowmobiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should be focusing on the KMP or KMP is just one little aspect of this. And that's just my thought.
Councillor Fowler?
And I agree that it's not just restricted to the KMP. The county can say they would accept a pass like that, but the one pass system that I'm speaking about is for the whole province.
Mhm.
Anywhere in the province where you're required to have a pass.
Right.
You should be able to have one pass with all.
Which would mean were you required to have a pass if you're allowed to ride on that trail?
Yeah, exactly.
Councillor Spears, Greenwood Spears? You turned your mic off.
That's a mistake, sorry. I think we should probably put in a friendly amendment to give that clarity that it's to the KMP trail that currently allows for motorized vehicles. So that there isn't any misunderstanding that it suddenly comes down below Verona. And I would make that amendment if that's needed.
So I believe either Mr. Allen or Mr. Pender can confirm, but this only deals with passes. We actually have a KMP trail bylaw as well as most other places may have a trail bylaw, which would supersede this. So if the bylaw states that passes, that motorized vehicles are not allowed, they're not allowed. So I don't think you need to clarify that in the motion.
Brand, did you? Okay. The only part I was wondering about the language was motorized recreational vehicles, period. Does that mean dirt bikes? Motorcycles? You know what I mean? So that, I don't know if they were allowed ever on it, were they? Or maybe you better speak to this, Mr. Allen.
So our bylaw currently prevents two-wheeled motorized dirt bikes, dual sport bikes from participating on the motorized sections of the trail. Other trails permit it. One of the challenges was that there isn't a clear pass system or a club system for these groups. They're not, the ATV groups don't bring them in to be part of their system. And they, whether it's EOTA or the OFATV. And so then it's a lot less clear. I'd rather have, if we're going to do a motorized pass, we need to at least consider the inclusion of these as part of motorized summer use as part of that pass system across the province.
Leave the motion the way it is.
I suspect that like the bylaws, local bylaws will still inform what uses take place outside of whatever pass system or regulations come into place through the province if they undertake this.
Okay, I was just trying to avoid confusion by creating confusion. So if that's it, then sorry, what? Oh. Councillor Greenwood Spears.
With that clarification, that I think it would be helpful along the trail to have indicating signs with what is allowed, including perhaps what's not. So a line through dirt bikes and motorbikes, because people that would have potentially a unified pass, they would need to know that even though it's a motorized section, that's not part of our bylaws. So it will impact us for signage.
I think that is now. I think there are signs that definitely have that on there. I know at Craig Road it said it, so. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Oh, that's it for me anyway. Back to you.
Back to me. Okay, communications, couple pages. No questions or comments on any of those. Is there any other business? If not, we're at bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Deputy Warden Vandewall. Resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce bylaws A and B that have been circulated to all members of County Council, and that bylaws A and B be read a first and second time.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Deputy Warden Vandewall. Resolved that bylaws A and B be read a third time, signed, sealed, and finally passed.
Comments? All those in favor? Carried. We
Move-
are almost adjourned.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Leonard, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 11:55 a.m.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Carried.